Thank you very much, Jay Panda, for joining me on Frankly Speaking. Pleasure to have you here. And of course, every time we meet, your responsibilities have increased from the previous time. So, Sangathan in charge of Delhi and Assam, also looking after the Mahila Morcha. But the big one this time is to be the election in charge of UP. We've heard 400 Paar. 80 of those 400 will come from Uttar Pradesh. What's your bet? How many seats?
First of all, I myself have been surprised that the leadership of the Bharatiya Janata Party, especially Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji and Party President Jay Panda ji, have taken me into confidence for such an important responsibility. See, Uttar Pradesh is the heart of the Indian political system. And you're right, there's no other state that comes anywhere close to 80 seats. The mahol, as it were, is extremely positive, which I'm sure you've heard about. And the target is 80 out of 80.
80 out of 80 is a realistic target. Are you not giving any chance to any other political party? Of course, the India alliance conversation somehow every day erodes a little more. Having said that, Akhilesh Yadav, Samajwadi Party, the BSP and the Congress Party, all going their own ways. Is that a lottery for the BJP?
The Bharatiya Janata Party does not take any election lightly. And it's also not a party that only turns up during elections. You know, 24/7, 365 days a year, our lakhs and crores of karyakartas are out there. They're engaging with people, engaging with the public, helping during crises. You know, during the corona pandemic, besides the phenomenal work done by the Modi government, the Bharatiya Janata Party workers under the leadership of Nadda ji fanned out and helped crores of people. So apart from social work, there is political outreach, there are political activities every week. It's not related to elections. It's about the idea of taking India forward, to develop India. Now, when elections come about, of course, everybody rolls out and puts in their effort to make sure that we win elections. And look, it's not our fault that the opposition can't, you know, the country does deserve a good opposition, as the Prime Minister himself has pointed out in Parliament. But that's a responsibility they have to take. We can't. And the so-called India alliance never stood a chance. Everybody in India knows that they don't get along with each other. They don't share any ideology. Their personalities don't get along with each other. They can't agree on who should lead them, let alone who should be their prime ministerial candidate. They can't even agree on who should be their convener. And all of India knows that as soon as the photo ops are done with, they start squabbling. So obviously,
when you talk about ideology, how much of your ideology matches with Ajit Pawar? How much of your ideology actually matches with the AIADMK? How much does the BJP's ideology match with any political party that you're taking on board at the moment? So ideology, I think, is an argument that was put to rest several decades ago.
I disagree.
And let's, why do you disagree?
I disagree. Because look, I think all these parties, either they have been in alliance with us in the past, or whoever are coming in alliance with us.
NCP?
They have
when
a
have
clear,
they been in alliance with you in the past?
They have a clear, this is not the same NCP that stood for certain kind of policies which have been against the country.
Which you took, your party took apart for scams in the irrigation sector in Maharashtra.
I think anybody in politics today, irrespective of which party they are in, they are clear about 2-3 things. They are clear that India has changed and improved dramatically under Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It's, you know, it's not an election talking point that we are the 5th largest economy in the world. It is not an election talking point that today this is a new India, a Naya Bharat. There is no crisis in the world today where the rest of the world doesn't look to India for assistance, where the rest of the world doesn't look to Prime Minister Narendra Modi for leadership. There is no crisis, whether it is economic, whether it is pandemic. So parties, whatever be their background, recognize that the BJP is working towards a better India. And wherever we have our own government, the double engine Sarkar in Uttar Pradesh has shown its effectiveness phenomenally well. Now, you don't see, let me establish one clear fact here. You do not see any of our alliance partners squabbling with us as soon as the cameras are on.
That's because you have brute force. No. You have brute force and the tyranny of numbers, quoting Sitaram Yechuri in parliament, and which is why nobody can squabble with you. They're either with you or they are over. And your institutions like the ED, CBI, you know it all, Jay Panda.
No, that's not fair at all. So let's be very clear. You talk about the numbers. How did we get here? Now, the BJP has got here over decades of sacrifice by 4 generations of not just leaders, but average karyakartas on the street. They have sacrificed their lives, they have put their blood, sweat and tears to bring the BJP to this point where not just the BJP, but India is respected around the world. You see.
I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that, Jay Panda.
Give me a chance to refute the wild allegations that you have been conveying. I recognize they are not your allegations, but you mentioned ED, CBI and all of that. Let me point something out. Now, are they not getting convictions? Let me point something out. In the decade before the Modi government took charge, there were ED and CBI raids quite across the country, quite a lot. You did not get a single conviction. Now, yes, today there have been more investigations because everybody knows that there are scams galore. Now, is it not a fact that Manish Sisodia, that Lalu Prasad Yadav, is it not a fact that other people in the opposition who have been arrested are getting convicted in cases? The conviction rate has gone up dramatically in the last decade. What does that mean? It means that judges in arguments in court are finding the prima facie evidence credible.
Mr. Jay Panda, there are 2 or 3 things that I'll admit to you. India's stature has gone, no doubt about it, it's gone. Has the economy improved in terms of its competitiveness in the world? It has. Have we handled COVID well? Yes, we have. Much better than other countries. Is Prime Minister Narendra Modi most popular leader, not just in India, but across the world? Yes, he is. I'll grant you all of this. Having said that, I want to ask you, you said sweat and tears have really been the part and parcel of the BJP's work towards coming up until this point. I grant you that as well. As a young reporter, I've covered the political space to see how the BJP has grown from 2 seats now to its 303 seats. But, let me ask you, ED, CBI conviction rate, are there scams in this country? Is there corruption in this country? Absolutely yes. But is there corruption only on one side of the fence and nothing on the other side? And when you say that we are against corruption and we will fight corruption, why is there silence? Why are there tie-ups with those against whom you and your party had leveled allegations? That is something that really doesn't sit well in any voter's, any citizen's mind. And it is here. You don't have to explain yourself to the opposition. You have to come clean with the voters who voted that you are not corrupt, you will catch the corrupt, but then you go and make alliances with the corrupt, people you have called corrupt. So what do you stand for?
I don't think we have any problem in connecting with voters and in communicating with them that the Modi government is good for the country, it is good for them, it is good for their families. They understand that clearly. The voters cherish the integrity that Prime Minister Modi has brought to this high office. We have seen this office held by people of other parties who used to receive visitors with suitcases of cash to the Prime Minister's home. Now, India has come a very long way, and I think the voters have great faith that no matter what alliances we have, that India is going to go in the right direction under the guidance of Prime Minister Modi. So you cannot get away from the fact that convictions are taking place and judges are deciding this in courts where evidence is being provided.
On Manish Sisodia, we don't have a judgment yet.
Well, in Manish Sisodia's case, you have not got bail yet after more than a year, and that should tell you something. That's not a decision that's taken by the government.
That's because
that's not a decision that's taken by ED.
Your critics say the law in the case of ED arrest is so difficult that once you get into jail, well, you can say bye-bye to your freedom.
No, that's nonsense, because, you know, the BJP, when it was in opposition, has faced real harassment. Our Prime Minister,
So it's
our Home
payback
Minister,
time.
no, it's not payback time. It's real harassment. And yet, our leaders never shied away from summons. Our leaders never said that the system is against them. They proved their innocence, and they got their innocence proven in courts with evidence provided by them. Now, when the shoe is on the other foot, and there are many convictions that are taking place, and bail is not granted only in exceptional cases. And the exceptional cases are when the prima facie evidence is correct. Look, you may defend Manish Sisodia all you want.
No, I don't.
He
I
advertises
don't.
a lot in the media, but listen.
Not one ad on Times Now. You can not make that allegation. Sheesh Mahal has made sure that, it's something that has been picked up by your party. It was hard work done by us on our channels, and literally we've stood up. We've stood up as the fourth estate, which must expose what's really happening.
And
so
there's
that
much more.
charge,
And there's
that
much more.
charge will not wash with me.
Look, the point is, the Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi gets a free pass from large sections of the media. The moment they goof up, the moment they make fun of Kashmiri Pandits in the Delhi Assembly, large sections of the media suddenly come to their aid and provide them a platform to try to divert the subject. The reality is that everybody in Delhi knows about the massive liquor scam, where not just Manish Sisodia, but the Chief Minister himself seems to be implicated, and he's avoiding ED summons.
But he's not an accused so far.
Look,
if,
the point
if you're
is,
saying that he seems implicated, make him an accused and let the law take its own course. But you haven't done that.
My point
Summons are going out. He's been summoned by the court tomorrow. But is it a Hobson's choice? And let me ask you
let me answer this question.
Are you going to arrest him,
let me
or
answer
are you worried about the sympathy
Let me answer this question. You can't ask a question and then move on. So the reality is, media, including Times Now, must ask this question, that a man who has made his career on the so-called India Against Corruption campaign refuses to appear before the ED to answer questions where an investigation is going on. Is that not odd?
Mr. Jay Panda, let me tell you very frankly, because we are speaking frankly tonight, that Times Now has never held back its punches as far as the Aam Aadmi Party is concerned. Questions have been asked, and we've even exposed the biggest scams against them. Having said that, other media, well, I'm not answerable for them. You're most welcome to use their platforms and ask them these questions. But my point is that you're summoning him, great. If you say he's almost implicated, kindly make him an accused. If he's an accused and cannot defend his case, arrest him. But what is this song and dance that is going on? Summon after summon after summon. And he keeps saying, ke, mujhe to arrest karne wale, mujhe to arrest karne. Shadow boxing. Arrest him, be done with it, let the law take its own course. Are you now worried that if you arrest him, then the sympathy will be with him? Elections are around the corner. So are political considerations holding back or somehow affecting the investigations? Please answer that question honestly.
You seem to be almost batting for him. But let me answer this question. The answer is, arrests are not done by a Jay Panda. Arrests are not even done by a minister. Arrests are done by procedures. And the procedures have to be followed to make sure that the investigation is thorough. Now, Prime Minister Modi makes it very clear. There's not going to be any witch hunting. There will be no, na khaunga, na khane dunga is the spirit. And that means there will be no relief for people, even if they are our opposition or whoever they are. If they're involved in corrupt practices. This is not the same government where you saw bouncers. This is not the same government where you saw bouncers prevent the bidding for telecom licenses in the UPA government. This is not the same government where you saw the coal scam which went all the way up to the Prime Minister's office. Now, Ajit Pawar actually got relief from the courts. So, let me not question the courts, and if you are questioning the courts, you have to question them, not me. Now, let me make this point very clear. The investigation process goes through certain clearly established parameters. And the clearly established parameters means that if a finger of suspicion is raised towards you and you are summoned for investigation and you have nothing to hide, you should not shy away from summons. You should meet them and give your your safai. The point is he's not able to do that.
Point granted, but the question here is that those you blamed now are part of your alliance. You talked about suitcases reaching right up to the top office. Well, we, you know, if my journalism serves me right, as a cub reporter, one read about Harshad Mehta carrying suitcases, and who was the Prime Minister at that time? Who was the Prime Minister at that time? P.V. Narasimha Rao, the man who's just been given a Bharatratna. So what are you telling me? You're talking about suitcases in the regime of P.V. Narasimha Rao, a man your government has given a Bharatratna to.
P.V. Narasimha Rao did a lot for the country. He initiated the reforms that were sorely needed, that the BJP itself had been advocating for.
But the suitcase example is also from that era.
The suitcase example may be from that era, but the point is, there was, you know, P.V. Narasimha Rao receiving suitcases has never been proven. And so it's unfair to judge him against that parameter. I said that there were people taking suitcases of cash to people who surrounded him, who were around him all the time. Now, it's not just P.V. Narasimha Rao. What the BJP has done, the BJP has given the rightful honor to a whole panoply of leadership who were actively suppressed in the goal of just elevating one family in the country's polity. So the Iron Man himself was neglected for long decades until the BJP started cherishing him. Ambedkar himself had been relegated to the sidelines. Look at what the BJP has done by giving Bharat Ratna to President Pranab Mukherjee. Look at Karpuri Thakurji, who really fought for social justice. But more than that, the BJP has also elevated people from every section of society. We have now the first president of the nation, of the republic, who is from the Janjati Samaj, from Adivasi Samaj, and she has done a phenomenal job, track record of not getting here by doing dynasty politics, but by really working hard on the ground. We have done the same thing with the Padma Awards. The Padma Awards have got democratized. It's no longer meant for those who have clout and have connections in political circles. It is meant for the average Indian, the average Bharatiya, from the nooks and crannies all over the country who are serving society.
So let me ask you, when you say that you have honored people, some of them pretty belatedly, weren't honored earlier by other governments, fair point. But Karpuri Thakur and Chaudhry Charan Singh, many people make an allegation that this is with an eye on elections. Karpuri Thakur, social engineering, that's because the PDA, the caste census are demands of the opposition. So you bring in your trump card, which is a political trump card. And Chaudhry Charan Singh, because somewhere or the other, Jayant Chaudhry has to be pulled out of an alliance with the Samajwadi Party. So Chaudhry Charan Singh is ordered, and lo and behold, the RLD is part of the NDA now and not the India alliance. How do you explain the political charge?
Let me dismantle this argument. So the opposition's charge invariably against the BJP government, against the Modi government, is about timing. Why now? Not about the merit. Now, I want to ask any of them who is making this allegation, does Chaudhry Charan Singh ji deserve a Bharat Ratna? Of course, nobody will deny it. Now, you had decades. Nobody stopped you. Now, because our government has made it possible, you can't oppose it on merit. You can't oppose it on political grounds, on any grounds. So you start attacking the timing. That doesn't wash with voters. That doesn't wash with anybody. It's just a fake argument.
And Jayant Chaudhry, in the NDA, Western UP is something that you swept, even last elections. Why would you need Jayant Chaudhry other than to break the India alliance?
Look, first of all, it's not the India alliance, because you can't use the word alliance twice. It's the Indi alliance.
Okay.
The Indi alliance is breaking apart on its own. Look, long before any of these parties joined us, Mamata Banerjee is not allowing their rallies in Bengal. In UP, they are not calling their partners to join with them in any of these so-called yatras. The inherent fissures within the India alliance is out there in the open for everybody to see long before any of these alliances happen. And by the way, my friend Jayant Chaudhry's father was a part of the NDA, was a minister in the NDA government. And the question that you raised is actually quite valid. Now, having done so well in the areas where RLD has a base, why should we want alliances? The reality is we want to focus on taking India forward. Our idea is that we must carry every section of society with us. And
तो ये ध्यान चुनाव से पहले खाली क्यों आता है? बाकी समय भी carry everybody along?
We do. Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas is not just a slogan, it's really true. And we can go into that more in detail. But the point is, of course, you make election strategies during elections. You don't make election strategies.
So this is an election strategy, not Sabka Saath.
No, no, no. Election strategy and Sabka Saath can go hand in hand.
But why only during election season?
It's not only during election season. Not at all.
Why? You're talking to Jayant Chaudhary, you're talking to TDP, you're talking to Akalis, all of this
How do you know that we weren't talking to them before the elections came so close?
Because it's my business to know when you talk
No,
and when
you're
you
not
don't.
aware.
We are a journalist. We are journalists and we follow all of
I
these
can tell you, I myself have been in talks with some of them long before the elections came on the horizon. So look, it may suit some of them to pick a timing of their own choice. So I would urge, not just you, but all your viewers, that to not get sucked into this fake argument of timing. Because, as I said, the people making this allegation had decades in their hand to do the right thing, to give Bharatratnas to all these people who have contributed to India. And they didn't do it. And now all they can find is timing. Why now? Why not 2 weeks earlier? Why not 2 months earlier? That's ridiculous.
Well, okay, ridiculous, all right, but then let me come down to the farmers' protest. Now, the farmers' protest, many would say some of those demands are extremely difficult to go ahead and accept simply because, they would cost the exchequer about 10 lakh crores, and that's the total capital expenditure that the budget has promised, which means we'll build nothing at all in terms of assets, no infrastructure, no capital investments if we were to pay. Is this once again coming at a time when it could affect the prospects of the BJP? Because last time around, when the farm reforms were on the anvil, the farm bills were passed in Parliament, it was taken back. You went back. Have the farmers now tasted blood, and are you on the back foot right now?
So let's see this issue comprehensively. You know, when the farmers' protest first happened a couple of years ago, all these opposition parties who opposed the BJP, they had in their manifestos specifically promised exactly what was done by the BJP government, and they went back on it. Their hypocrisy was exposed by your channel and many others. The whole country has seen it, the whole world has seen it. They were doing just politics. Modi ji's commitment to double the farmers' income has happened. I'll give you a statistic. A year or two before the Modi government began, the MSP was 1,000 rupees. Today it is approaching 2,200 rupees. It's just under 2,200 rupees. That's more than double. That was the promise that Modi ji had given and has happened. But it's more than just MSP. You see, the MSP regime was created in an era 50, 60 years ago when this was a totally different country. We depended on handouts from the West, and it required a certain set of policies. After that, every agri-economist, every general economist, every political party, except maybe the communists, have supported this reform. And MSP alone can't be the only way of getting farmers to improve their livelihood.
I'm with you.
So I'm just coming to that. So what all has been done in terms of DBT for farmers, direct benefits transfer? What all has been done? Simply with neem-coated urea, Prime Minister Modi stopped that huge racket that was going on, which was diversion of
subsidized
agrochemicals
urea
for other purposes. Now, clearly, this latest protest which is happening, it is instigated by some of those same frustrated people in the opposition who see this massive support for the BJP and for Prime Minister Modi, and they are desperate to do anything to try and distract the attention. But this time the people are wiser. They clearly understand why this is being done.
We understand why this is being done, and I'm not a votary of giving in to the farmers' demands. It does not make economic sense, and I have no problem in saying that. Having said that, the worry really is that sound economics is sometimes not sound politics. And this time, are you more vulnerable because elections are around the corner? Because 3 rounds of talks between ministers and the protesting farmers, so-called farmers, have taken place. It seems like you're under pressure. I want to know how far are you willing to accommodate some of these demands that have been put out, maybe unreasonable, but the timing.
We are not under pressure, but you have raised something, an issue which I think is very important. You said sometimes sound economics doesn't make for sound politics. I think this used to be the conventional wisdom for many decades. And that's why irrational economics had led India to almost ruination. What Prime Minister Modi has done is turned this on its head and has proven that sound economics is actually good politics. You've seen the BJP grow from strength to strength even during these 10 years, even after he first came to power and formed the government in 2014.
On most issues, I agree.
No, let me give you an example.
But on the farm laws, certainly not.
I'll come to that. So, you know, even if you look at farmers, the kind of political support that the BJP has across the country, clearly most farmers, the vast majority of farmers are supporting the BJP. Now, let me address this important issue you've raised, whether sound economics and sound politics can go hand in hand. So one of the other challenges we face, and this goes beyond the farm sector, is the so-called Revdi politics, where people throw freebies to buy votes only during election. Now look how radically this angle has been turned around by the Modi government. Now, this latest scheme of rooftop solar is an out-of-the-box solution which addresses the need of the poor, because they will get permanent muft bijli because of the rooftop installations. But it is a win-win solution, because that rooftop installation takes care of the country's requirement and it also provides them an income beyond the bijli that they themselves will use by selling excess bijli to others. So you can come up with win-win solutions where the economics are good and the politics are good. And as far as farmers are concerned, that's precisely what has been done. You look at this rally, these rallies which are going on, you see farmers with brand new tractors, with livelihoods that are much better off than before the Modi government. I think in their heart of hearts, they also realize that the Prime Minister is taking the steps which are going to be ultimately good for the nation and for them.
But heart of hearts doesn't really help if they continue to protest, and as you say, they've been propped up by the opposition. So this is not about policies. This is about the fact that there is politics. And politics ahead of elections, well, the opposition is also going to play its trump cards, and they've played this one. The question is, how far can you go to hold out to these protesting so-called farmers? Because last time around, they pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and in the end, you had to reverse your good economics by taking back the farm laws. This time around, how far are you going to go? That is the question people are asking.
That's a good question. So 99% of the good economic policies have not had to be reversed under the Modi government, whereas that was not the case earlier, before this BJP NDA government came into being. Now, since last time, a lot has happened. You look around now, there's no farmers' protest in Uttar Pradesh. There's no farmers' protest in Assam.
But Ticket has given a call today.
There's no farmers' protest in, I'm talking about today, there's no farmers' protest in Karnataka. There is no farmers' protest in the vast majority of places. So there is a small group of people who are being instigated. Everybody knows it, where they're trying to create a problem.
From Punjab, from the Aam Aadmi Party government, you're pulling your punches, I don't.
So the thing is, the MSP system has continued since the last agitation, since the government took the decision to go along with the demand. And the MSP system continues while all these other new policies are also parallelly running. So the farmers have no reason to complain that they don't get MSP. I just gave you the example of MSP having doubled in the last little more than 10 years. Now,
not for every crop, because if I give you the demand on the basis of the Swaminathan committee formula, which is C2 plus 50% of the costs, something to that effect, that works out well for some crops like wheat, but in other crops the MSP is lower than that. For example, in wheat, C2 is 1652, MSP announced is 2275, but the rate that they want is almost 2500 rupees per quintal. In barley, it should be about again 2500 rupees per quintal. It's at the moment at 1850. In grams, it should be about 7000, but it's about 5500. So there are gaps.
Let me explain. So I had the privilege of serving alongside late Professor Swaminathan in Rajya Sabha. And I've discussed these issues, his proposals with him many times to understand where he came from. These proposals were in a context where MSP was the only option for farmers because, as I said, the country was starving in the late 60s and even in the 70s and depended on handout from Western nations. There was no option but to pursue these kind of policies. And these policies are continuing, and when you give the rates of all the MSP options, the reality is that by far the lion's share is wheat and rice. Everybody knows that. And the real challenge for India is, we have these huge stocks of millions of tons of grains, which often rats eat away. And so there's been another win-win out-of-the-box solution with the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, where 80 crore people are benefiting from those grains which were just rotting away or being eaten away by the rats. The real challenge is how do you provide a roadmap, how do you provide a path so that farmers, the millions of farmers and their families have a way for improved livelihoods and different options. So those options have been happening. Now, with the kind of infrastructure that has come up, with the kind of value-added products in fruits, in vegetables, in floriculture, that you'll see many farmers very well off because they are able to export. The number of airports have doubled. The number of facilities
You're
for infrastructure.
Preaching to the convinced.
All right.
How will you preach this to the farmers?
Very simple. Because increasing numbers of farmers are already doing much better outside the MSP regime. And the vast majority of the farmers on the MSP regime have got delivery of the promise that the Modi government had given to more than double.
But what will you do about those sitting on the borders of Haryana and those who are literally arm twisting you by creating the protest? Storm Delhi is their call. You don't have to preach the economics to me. I'm convinced and I believe that what you are doing and the reforms that were suggested, in fact, should not have been pulled back. We should have pressed on with it. But I'm only asking you, what are your political compulsions and how long will you be able to hold out?
We don't have any political compulsions. The BJP is very clear that we must carry everybody with us. Now, all these steps that have been taken, even many of these farmers or so-called farmers who are protesting, even if they're instigated, they have benefited immensely even in the last 2 years. Those who wanted MSP have got MSP. They've got, the MSP has continuously been increased.
तुमको हटाओगे कैसे?
हटेंगे, because their demand is not about MSP anymore. Their demand is extraneous arguments which is not core to the demands they had been making even 2 years ago. So you can see that you call it compulsion. I don't. I call it a humane attitude that if they are protesting, even if there isn't merit in the argument compared to even 2 years ago, we will hear them and we will find a solution.
Do you think the Ram Leher, the Ram Mandir becoming a reality, the Pran Pratishtha, will be able to solve all these other niggling issues in politics and in the run-up to elections that have cropped up?
So it is a fact that the Pran Pratishtha is a seminal moment in the history of Bharat. It is a seminal moment in the Republic of India because, it has been 500 years since a temple was destroyed there. And a struggle has been going on for this half a millennium. And I think most Indians had sort of internalized a feeling that, okay, these injustices can never be corrected and we have to just live with it. Now, a time has come and we are all fortunate, you and I and everybody that is alive today is fortunate to be living in this Bharat where these changes have happened. So there is a great awakening, there is a great pride, and of course there is there's an immense rush of devotees from all over the country I can give you my own examples from rural parts of various parts of the country. It is not just about Uttar Pradesh, of course. So there is a huge, huge support that has emerged. But as I said, we don't take any elections lightly. We will address each and every issue. We will do our homework. We will make sure that we go door to door. Look at this Viksit Bharat campaign that has been going on. Now, you know, the lives have been transformed of hundreds of millions of Indians. 250 million Indians have been pulled out of poverty. But since you keep telling me that I'm preaching to the choir, then I will, you know, instead of preaching about all the good work that has done, let me talk about the political work that is left. We are, the reason the BJP has been very successful, apart from the leadership provided over the decades and now by the world's most popular leader, Modi ji, is the crores of Karyakartas who go door to door and take this message home. So the Ram Mandir Pran Pratishtha Leher is real. We are going to, of course, we associate with it, and so that will benefit us. But every other aspect, the fact that today the number of homes with piped drinking water has gone from only 16% to now about 71%. There are all these homes that we visit, our Karyakartas visit. They will ask, has your home got piped drinking water yet or not? And if not, in the next 2 years you will. So these are the kind of efforts that are going on the ground, which will ensure that it's not just any one issue, but a whole range of issues where we will succeed.
As far as corporate donations go, bulk of them, maybe over 90%, have gone to the BJP. Because you're the central government, you have access to the secret donors list, even those who donate to the opposition, and then so you can put your agencies, the ED, the CBI, the income tax behind those who are funding the opposition.
In democracy, you have to worry about the legitimacy of the funds, primarily. And then, of course, you can decide on what degree of traceability and transparency that you want. But you can't say that unless we have a perfect system, we will throw out a good system, whereas the older system was horribly worse.
Let me ask you, the BJP is also, not pulled their punches as far as Sonia Gandhi leaving Raebareli and going to the Rajya Sabha in Rajasthan route. Many in the Congress say that, everybody knows about her health position and the BJP is playing dirty in these politics. And, Amethi, Rahul Gandhi's lost, Raebareli, Sonia Gandhi's left is being made into a political issue. Do you really think the BJP is hitting below the belt?
Look, the problem is when you call out facts and people say that, oh, you really shouldn't because, it's politically below the belt. Look, these are facts. When you say that the entire country, the entire system was subjugated to one family, was it not? We can rattle off the facts one after the other. It's a fact. When you say that the leadership of the Congress is out on bail for a massive fraud, is it not a fact? It's a fact. Now, by pointing out facts, if people say you're hitting below the belt, see, is it not a fact that Rahul Gandhi ji lost Amethi and he had to fight from a place where he never had any political roots, and it's a totally different demographics that he's trying to leverage.
So you're saying the minority votes?
Look, the Congress party has changed dramatically over the decades. It was hijacked right in 1946 itself, when the party's membership's choice of leadership was overruled and somebody else was foisted on it. It changed in the 60s when family dynastic control was deeply established. It changed in the 80s when the Supreme Court's ruling was overruled only to pander to the basest kind of vote bank politics. I can keep going on and on, but we should not be afraid of discussing facts. If really they are not running away from Uttar Pradesh, nobody stops them from contesting.
Do you think Rahul Gandhi will contest Amethi?
I can't answer for him. He lost last time. And Smriti Irani ji has persisted there after not succeeding the first time around, had a thumping victory the last time around. And look, the kind of dramatic development that has taken place in Uttar Pradesh once the BJP has provided a government. You see what is happening in Kashi in just a few short years. Now, that party and its leading family have been in Uttar Pradesh, in Raebareli, in Amethi for all these decades. Can't say that they couldn't have improved the place.
Will BJP win it this time?
We are targeting all 80 seats, and we are very confident of winning all 80 seats.
The best run for the BJP was in 2014 when Mr. Amit Shah was in charge of Uttar Pradesh, and I think 73 seats out of 80 was the result. What's your bet on this time?
Look, even last time in 2019, when all disparate entities ganged up with the only sole objective that Modi ji must be stopped, BJP must be stopped, even then we won 64 out of 80. So BJP 62 and 2 more with allies. So, you know, even in the most difficult circumstances in the last decade, we had a huge victory. In this time, in these circumstances, of course it should be 80 out of 80, and it will be.
It will be 80 out of 80?
Yes.
Are we putting a bet on that?
Well, I mean, I'm not a betting person, but we are putting our heart and soul into this effort to ensure that every last seat, we turn over every stone to make sure that we win them.
Other than the farmer protest, another setback to the BJP would be the Supreme Court's judgment yesterday on electoral bonds. And do you think it's a little embarrassing because transparency has trumped over the hidden non-transparent manner in which the electoral bonds were first put out, despite objections from the RBI, despite objections from the Election Commission of India?
You know, I don't think it's a setback for the BJP per se, but I must tell you personally, of course, I'm disappointed because I believe it's a setback for the nation. And there are very few Supreme Court judgments where I feel this way, but let me explain why. You know, what existed before the electoral bond system, everybody knows, was suitcases full of illicit cash. And the grounds on which this has been overruled, that people have a right to information, you think the right to information was better when political funding was all in suitcases of cash? It was illegitimate money, much of it coming from criminal activity, coming from drug and arms smugglers, and even terrorists. People like Dawood Ibrahim were suspected to be involved in funding many political campaigns. So the electoral bonds solved the legitimacy issue because all the donors are registered entities with a high degree of scrutiny by
which
regulatory.
You know about, which nobody else knows about, as the ruling party.
If you allow me to complete the argument. So there are 2-3 issues here. As opposed to the earlier situation where the money was illegitimate, here the donors are all legitimate. They're registered entities. They're under regulatory bodies, various regulatory bodies. Now, you can wish for more traceability of the funds or more transparency of the funds, but as the late Arun Jaitley often explained, and even on your channel, that donors were unwilling, they were skittish, and so that was not a workable solution. So what has happened is, by throwing out the bonds, the perfect has become the enemy of the good. The bonds certainly solved the legitimacy problem of electoral funds, but by insisting on even more transparency, what has happened is we have thrown out the baby along with the bathwater. And
so let me ask you, the Supreme Court raises this question, and it's a very important point to ponder about. As far as corporate donations go, bulk of them, maybe over 90%, have gone to the BJP, number one. Number two, the Supreme Court says, how can anybody be sure that there isn't a quid pro quo, because the central government is the policy-making body, gets lion's share of the corporate donations, very little going to other political parties. The quid pro quo question, number one. And number two, because you're the central government, you have access to the secret donors list, even those who donate to the opposition, and then
So-
you can put your agencies, the ED, the CBI, the income tax behind those who are funding the opposition.
So let me rebut each of these points. Okay. Now, by doing away with this system, you go back to the older system for now, which is far, far worse, because there was no right to information and it was illicit money. And it's not true that the BJP gets that percentage of the funds. It's far, far less than that. Let me give you an example. If you take the percentage of seats won by some of these parties, both Lok Sabha as well as the state assemblies, and you look at the percentage of donations that they have got, the BJP is actually a little bit of a loser. Now, compared to the seats that we are winning in parliament and in assemblies across the country, we should actually be getting more funds. Please do that analysis. Have somebody do that analysis for you. So some of these parties are in fact not discriminated against, even though they have lost popular support immensely. So like I said, the bonds solved the problem of legitimacy of the funds. You could keep saying that, yes, there should be more traceability, more transparency of the funds. The donors clearly didn't want that, which is why we had this degree, which is an improvement on the old system. Now, you can throw out the baby with the bathwater. You can say that because the system is not perfect, it is, even though it is much better, much better than the earlier system, we'll throw it away. But I don't think that's a rational way of going about it.
Is the government going to go in and appeal?
By the way, look, that will have to be considered. I don't want to give a comment on that hastily. It's a Supreme Court judgment after all. It has to be studied carefully. By the way, there are other democracies in the world which have the same degree of requirements of disclosure. So it's not as if India was in some outlier position. So in democracy, you have to worry about the legitimacy of the funds, primarily. And then, of course, you can decide on what degree of traceability and transparency that you want. But you can't say that unless we have a perfect system, we will throw out a good system, whereas the older system was horribly worse.
Well, it may have been horribly worse, but the fact of the matter is that in this case, the opacity is something that did cause concern, and there were no efforts made to address the opacity.
The whole issue is, what did it replace? It replaced a system where the opacity was 1,000,000 times worse. It replaced a system where suitcases of cash from terror organizations, from drug smugglers, from arms smugglers were going to... Yes, of course, we should try to find a solution, but we should not throw away the good in search of the perfect and land up with the very, very bad.
Well, I don't know about the should, but actually, in actuality, in reality, it has happened.
Yes.
And on March 13th, I think we'll have the list of names out. The retrospective manner in which this will come out, well, there are different views about that. But the fact is, more transparency means a more empowered electorate. That really should be the topmost agenda.
I don't think we have an argument on that. I think we should have both legitimacy and transparency. Now, if you don't get all the solutions at one go, but you get at least one solution which improves from the past system, where you have legitimacy of the funds, then at least that is a building block that should not be thrown away. Based on that building block, you should take further steps. But you're right, it's a fait accompli. The Honorable Court has already issued its judgment.
And when Jairam Ramesh says, "Soot boot, jhoot loot ki sarkar," how would you respond?
Look, they make all these allegations, but you know, those huge sums that are coming out from their own MPs' homes and cars in Jharkhand and Odisha and everywhere in Chhattisgarh, let him answer that first.
Well, a very, very hot summer's election ahead of us, and Jay Panda, it was lovely having you on the hot seat, answering all of those questions simply because it's our job to ask the questions, and it was nice of you to answer them frankly. Thank you very much for joining me on Frankly Speaking.
Thank you. Namaskar.